that maybe all this goodness is costing you everything. But instead of listening, you double down. You try to be even more gentle, even more forgiving, hoping that if you just prove your worth, someone, anyone, will finally treat you right. But the world doesn't reward purity. It rewards power. And power, as Machiavelli made clear, is not about how much love you can gather. It's about how much damage you can survive without losing your grip. The powerful do not beg. They do not explain. And they do not allow anyone to define them by anything but their own strength. Because in a world that's constantly testing your boundaries, every time you let something slide, you're teaching people how to hurt you better next time. Now here's the trap. Everyone wants to believe they're the exception, that they can be good and still be strong, that they can keep giving without running dry. And it works. For a while. Until one day you're the one staying up at night, trying to understand why people you helped are the same ones sabotaging you, why your loyalty is met with betrayal, why the people you defend are the ones who talk behind your back. You'll go through all the rational explanations. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they don't know better. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. But what you won't admit, what's too painful to accept, is that they did it because they could. Because there was no consequence. Because they didn't fear what you might do. Fear. That's a word no one wants to talk about. But fear is the silent currency of every relationship. Not terror, not cruelty, but the quiet, undeniable sense that crossing you comes with a price. And if you don't have that, if your presence doesn't carry weight, you'll spend your whole life being used, overlooked and discarded the moment you're no longer convenient. People love to romanticize the idea that you can win people over with your heart alone, but even love without respect becomes pity. And pity is the slowest form of contempt. The moment you understand that, everything changes. You stop asking why people hurt you. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop begging the world to play fair. And you start doing what Machiavelli would demand, what reality demands. You stop living on hope, and you start building leverage. Leverage isn't loud. It's not about domination or control. It's about being undeniable. About knowing that you have something, strength, clarity, discipline, that people can't manipulate. That when someone tries to take from you, they'll regret it. That you're not afraid to walk away. That your silence isn't weakness, it's warning. But here's the uncomfortable truth. To build that kind of presence, you have to let the parts that cling to being liked, the parts that want everyone to understand you, the parts that still believe that fairness will save you. You have to kill the illusion that people will change if you just love them harder. They won't. They change when they realize you won't tolerate being disrespected. And most people aren't ready to do that. Because being ruthless, it comes with a cost. You'll be misunderstood, labeled cold, too intense, too distant. But that's the price of being unbreakable. See, being ruthless isn't about cruelty. It's about clarity, knowing what you will and will not accept, knowing when to walk away and when to strike, knowing that sometimes mercy is the weapon that gets you killed, and you won't learn this in books. You'll learn it the moment someone betrays you and still expects you to stay. You'll learn it when you finally say no, and they look at you like you've committed a crime. Because people who are used to your self-sacrifice will always call your boundaries selfish. That's how you know you've drawn the line, right? Machiavelli didn't tell us to become monsters. He told us to become unshakable, to understand that if you want to navigate a world built on dominance, you can't show up as prey. You have to become the kind of person that doesn't flinch when things get ugly, the kind of person that can sit in the fire and not scream, the kind of person that doesn't chase closure, doesn't need apologies, doesn't need anyone to see their side. Because when you're truly ruthless, not out of hate, but out of necessity, you don't need anyone to understand you. You only need them to know they can't break you. And that's where the shift begins. When you stop trying to be understood and start becoming undeniable. When your silence starts carrying more weight than someone else's shouting. When people start adjusting their tone the moment you walk in, not because you demanded it, but because your energy leaves no room for games. That's the Machiavellian way. Not noise, not drama, just presence. Presence built on control, and control built on knowing that at any given moment you can burn the whole thing down and walk away without a second thought. But you can't fake this. You can't pretend to be ruthless. The world will test you. It'll poke, prod, insult, and reject you just to see if you fold. And if you do, even once, even just a little, you confirm what they already suspect, that you're just like the rest, that your strength is performance, that your confidence is borrowed. But when you don't fold, when you meet insult with silence, betrayal with indifference, and pressure with precision, something strange happens. The same people who once doubted you begin to fear disappointing you, not because you're cruel, but because you've shown them you don't need them. Needing nothing from anyone is the most dangerous position you can be in, because when you don't need, you can choose. You can walk away without hesitation. You can negotiate without begging. You can lead without asking for permission. And people feel that. They feel it the way animals sense an alpha. Something primal, something unspoken, something that can't be faked with words or titles. It's earned, and it's felt in the smallest moments. A look, a pause, a refusal to react. This is the art of becoming ruthless, not loud, not flashy, but deliberate. The kind of ruthlessness that doesn't destroy everything, just the illusions that make you weak. And once those illusions are gone, you begin to see the world exactly as it is. Not cruel, not fair, just real. And in that reality, everyone is playing a game, whether they admit it or not. Some play to survive, others play to dominate. But the ones who win, they play to outlast. And to outlast, you have to harden. Not just once, not just after one betrayal, but over and over again, until your strength isn't a mask you wear. It's a skin you grow. It doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer control your decisions. You still care, but with boundaries. You still love, but with discernment. And most importantly, you still give, but only to those who have earned it. That's the difference between the broken and the ruthless. The broken keep giving to prove they're good. The ruthless give because they choose to, not because they're afraid of being seen as bad. Machiavelli understood that power was never about being feared for no reason. It was about being respected because you could have chosen revenge, but didn't. You could have destroyed someone, but walked away instead. That kind of restraint. It terrifies people more than any threat, because it proves you're not reacting, you're choosing. And anyone who chooses when others react owns the dynamic. But you can't get to that level if you're still flinching at rejection, if you're still explaining yourself to people who don't listen, if you're still trying to prove your worth to people who benefit from your self-doubt. The moment you realize that someone not valuing you isn't a problem, it's a filter, you begin to reclaim your power, not with revenge, but with removal. Silence becomes your new sharpest weapon. Distance, your defense. Detachment, your armor. And the beauty of it all is how quiet it becomes. No dramatic confrontations, no last word victories, just the sound of you moving on. No announcement, no parade, just absence. A void that speaks louder than any argument ever could. And the world notices. Because in a culture addicted to validation and constant connection, the one who doesn't chase is the one who stands out, the one who walks away calmly from chaos without needing applause. That's the person people remember, because they represent something rare, power without noise, authority without arrogance, discipline without display. But there's a paradox here, and you need to the deserving ever reach it. You don't want to become a monster. You want to become untouchable without losing your soul. And how do you do that? You keep your principles, but you stop announcing them. You set boundaries, but you enforce them quietly. You give trust, but in small doses, slowly, watching everything. And you stop expecting people to treat you the way you treat them. That expectation is the root of so much suffering. Once you let go of it, you stop feeling betrayed by behavior that was predictable all along. You stop giving people the power to shock you, and when no one can shock you, no one can break you. Most people live in cycles of hope and disappointment. They enter relationships hoping to be seen, only to be hurt. They open up hoping to be understood, only to be rejected. And each time they shrink a little more. They either become bitter or they break. But you don't have to choose either. There's a third path. You become strategic. You start watching more than you speak, listening more than you explain, and instead of handing people the script to hurt you, you hand them nothing. Let them guess. Let them project. Let them underestimate. It's all leverage, because the more unpredictable you become, the more powerful your presence gets. People don't fear those they fully understand. They fear the unknown, the unreadable, the unbothered. And when you carry yourself with that quiet, calculated distance, you become a mystery, not by pretending to be someone else, but by finally stopping the habit of oversharing, over-justifying, and over-apologizing. You begin to realize that the less you explain, the more respect you command. Now, this isn't about playing games. It's about understanding them so you're never a pawn again. Because life will test you through people. The ones who flatter you, the ones who challenge you, the ones who act like they love you until you say no. And every one of them teaches you a different lesson. How to hold your power, how to not be baited, how to keep your emotions yours, not theirs. And the more you master that, the less reactive you become. Your peace becomes sacred, your time expensive. And people start noticing that not everyone gets access to you. Not because you're cruel, but because you've paid the price for being too open, too soon, too often. And now you're done bleeding for people who don't bring bandages. You learn to observe a person's patterns, not their promises, their silences, not their speeches. You stop being impressed
Thank you
by
for that like,
and start
add,
paying
and
attention to
subscribe
consistency.
so you can
And
continue
slowly
to
the world
vibe and
starts to
learn with
look
me,
different.
grow with
Less
me.
like a battlefield and more like a board game. And you become a player who already knows how it ends because you're 10 moves ahead and you've already made peace with the idea of walking away if the game turns foolish. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't defend. You just remain, unshaken, unreadable, and unmistakably in control. Because you've learned that power isn't just about what you can do. It's about what you can resist doing. It's about knowing your hand could destroy someone and choosing not to move it. That's where the fear comes from. That's where the respect grows. And it's not about being feared for your rage. It's about being feared for your silence, your discipline, your self-possession. Let's keep smiling. Let's keep laughing. Let's keep happy.
You can have whatever you want for a price. Latest trend? Sure. But don't expect it to last.
That's not how we do it.
At Marshall's, our buyers hustle 24/7, so you never have to.
Our Chewy delivery came in, and someone already knows it's just for her. She gets so excited when it's Weruva. I love that Weruva is made with real, simple ingredients. It's food I actually feel good about giving Peppa. Peppa licks the bowl clean every time. and it honestly makes me so happy to see her enjoy it this much. Feeding her something that supports her health and happiness. That's why Weruva is our go-to. Weruva's quality plus Chewy's variety and convenience is a win-win for both of us. Shop Weruva at Chewy.
That's what makes people question themselves before they question you. You either break or you build this version of you. The version that doesn't seek fairness but creates balance. That doesn't demand loyalty but observes it. That doesn't scream boundaries but lives them. A version of you that doesn't need the world to be good anymore because you've become strong enough to navigate it exactly as it is. And when you do, you become something the world doesn't know how to deal with. Someone who doesn't crumble under betrayal. Someone who doesn't beg for closure. Someone who doesn't lose their mind when things fall apart. Because you've already rebuilt yourself from worse. And now, nothing can take that away from you. You either break, or you become ruthless. And once you choose the latter, you never go back. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally know your worth. And you'll never again let the world decide it for you. And here's what no one tells you. Once you step into that ruthless version of yourself, everything starts to shift. The way people look at you, the way they speak to you, the way they hesitate before pushing your limits. They don't always understand what's changed, but they feel it. You're not louder. You're not meaner. You're just sharper, like a blade hidden under calm eyes. And people instinctively pull back from sharp things. That's presence. That's power. Because now you're not moving through life asking for anything. You're evaluating. Does this person bring clarity or confusion? Does this situation make you stronger or weaker? And if the answer leans toward chaos, you cut it off. Clean, quick, quiet. No guilt. No second chances. Because you've learned something vital. Not everything deserves to stay just because it once made you feel good. Machiavelli would call this strategic cruelty, not in action, but in selection. Ruthlessness isn't only about how you deal with enemies, it's how you choose your allies. Who you allow close, who gets to hear your fears, who gets to see your flaws. And if you're still letting anyone in just because they ask nicely, you haven't fully stepped into your power yet. Being ruthless means no one is grandfathered into your life, not because you're cold, but because you've realized peace is more valuable than loyalty from the wrong people. You see, most people hold on to relationships because they're afraid of starting over. But you're no longer afraid of emptiness. You've made peace with solitude. You've sharpened yourself in the silence, and that makes you dangerous. Because a person who isn't afraid to be alone is a person you can't manipulate with loneliness. That's why the world
That's
tries
funny
so
because my new
hard to
topic
keep
is
you soft.
solitude.
It tells you that forgiveness makes you noble, that understanding everyone's pain makes you wise. And sure, those things have value until they start costing you your boundaries, until they start turning you into a person who tolerates everything just to be seen as good. But there's nothing noble about letting people walk all over you. There's nothing wise about allowing repeated disrespect in the name of compassion. At some point, you have to stop confusing your capacity to endure pain with a badge of honor. Pain is not a currency. And if you keep treating it like one, you'll keep attracting people who expect you to pay in suffering. So you make a new decision. No more over-explaining. No more begging to be understood. No more giving people 10 chances just because you're scared of looking too harsh. You cut through the noise. You state your boundaries once, and you let your actions enforce them. You don't teach people how to treat you with lectures. You teach them with consequences. And the moment someone realizes that crossing you isn't just unpleasant, but unrewarding, they stop. And those who don't, they remove themselves. Not because you push them, but because they realize they can no longer extract what they used to. And that's perfect. Let them go. In fact, Machiavelli would say, let them believe they're leaving on their own terms. That's the art. Never force. Just make resistance so exhausting, people choose submission over conflict. But don't mistake this for manipulation. This is psychological efficiency. It's the refusal to waste energy trying to convince anyone of anything. It's recognizing that not everyone deserves access to the full version of you. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all and let the silence do the talking. Because once people
Go back in
realize
there.
you're not
Come on.
emotionally dependent on them, they start showing their real
on.
face. The masks come off, the manipulation becomes obvious, and you get to make decisions not based on illusions, but clarity. That's the benefit of being ruthless. You no longer fall for the performance. You see people exactly as they are, and you adjust accordingly. And what you'll find is that your life begins to simplify drastically. You'll have fewer conversations, but they'll be real. Fewer relationships, but they'll be clean. Less drama, more movement. Less noise, more precision. The space that opens up, that's where your power lives. In the calm,
Come on,
in the
Siggy.
calculated, in the control. Now, some people will try to shame you for this shift. They'll say you've changed, that you've become too cold, too distant, too serious. And they're right. You have changed. You had to. Because the person you used to be was drowning in chaos, in overthinking, in emotional labor that never got returned. You used to shrink to keep others comfortable. Now you take up space unapologetically. You used to bend until you broke. Now you let things snap before you even consider folding. And if that makes people uncomfortable, let them squirm. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be powerful. You're not here to be soft enough to mold. You're here to be solid enough to stand. And the moment you own that truth fully, you stop living in defense. You stop anticipating who might misunderstand you, who might gossip about you, who might leave. You stop chasing safety, and you start creating strategy. Because here's what you finally understand. People don't respect good intentions. They respect strong results. They don't follow the kindest, they follow the clearest. And if you're still trying to lead with softness in a world that respects strength first, you're setting yourself up to be eaten alive. But when you flip the script, when you lead with strength and then reveal your softness to the worthy, that's when everything shifts. Because now your compassion has weight. Now your kindness has boundaries. Now your yes means something, because you're not afraid to say no. That's what real power looks like. It's not loud. It's not cruel. It's not performative. It's quiet, clear, unshakable. The kind of power that walks into a room and says nothing, and yet somehow commands the entire atmosphere. Because people can feel it. They can feel that you don't need validation, that you don't need acceptance, that you've built yourself in silence, brick by painful brick. You either break, or you build this fortress within, one thought, one rejection, one boundary at a time, until there's nothing left for the world to threaten, because you've already faced the worst, the loss of yourself, and now you're back, sharper, stronger, scarred but not scared. And that version of you, that version doesn't negotiate with disrespect. It doesn't explain itself to people committed to misunderstanding. It doesn't try to fit into rooms it's outgrown. It walks alone, not out of pride, but out of peace, out of clarity, out of the quiet knowing that you don't need to prove anything anymore, because you've already proven it to yourself. And that's enough. You reach a point where silence becomes your loudest answer, where your stillness carries more weight than all the noise thrown at you, where the battles people try to drag you into feel small, not because they're easy, but because you've outgrown the need to engage. That's what ruthlessness refines. It doesn't make you a villain. It makes you immune to being baited. You stop giving energy to every slight, every rumor, every fake smile hiding a knife. You stop dissecting people's intentions. You don't need to know why someone betrayed you anymore. It's enough that they did. And that knowledge alone is your exit ticket. No confrontation, no explanation. Just absence. Swift and surgical. That's the kind of decision-making the world fears. The kind where you vanish without warning because you no longer see value in staying. And that's the key shift from reaction to decision. You don't react when people provoke you. You decide how much access they have. You don't react to disrespect. You decide what energy gets your attention. You don't react to being underestimated. You use it. Because now, being overlooked is leverage. They won't see you coming, and by the time they do, it'll be too late. Machiavelli knew that those who announce their power are rarely the ones who hold it. The most dangerous people are quiet until it's time not to be. They let others talk. They let others assume. And then they strike, not to harm, but to end the game completely. One move, no comeback, no apology, just finality. That's the real edge of ruthlessness, not destruction, but precision. And you develop that precision by unlearning the behaviors that made you weak. You stop thinking you owe people anything just because you shared a past. You stop seeking validation in conversations that always leave you empty. You stop lowering your standards because someone else's potential looks promising. You stop handing out discounts on your energy. Because here's the truth. When you were at your most broken, you tolerated things that the real you never would. You laughed at jokes that hurt. You nodded along to people who disrespected you. You kept friendships that felt more like silent competitions. You tried to keep peace while sacrificing your own. And you wore it all like armor, hoping if you just stayed kind enough, small enough, agreeable enough, the world would finally stop throwing punches. But it didn't. Because the world doesn't back down when you surrender. It backs down when you fight back with silence, with standards, with space. And that's what you've learned now. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it by removing the oxygen, the attention, the availability, the emotional response. And suddenly the flames have nowhere to go. That's real control. And it's terrifying to those who once fed on your reactions. So now you keep your circle tight, your priorities tighter. You don't give away your vision in conversation anymore. You build in silence. You move with intent. And when people ask you what you're up to, you give them exactly what they deserve, just enough to confuse them, never enough to prepare them. Because not everyone deserves front row seats to your evolution. And when you do open up, it's no longer from a place of need. It's from choice. Because you've stopped bleeding for those who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You've stopped venting to people who only listen for weaknesses they can use later. You've stopped asking people to understand a journey they were never meant to walk with you in the first place. That's the core of being ruthless, not cruel to others, but finally loyal to yourself. It's the moment you realize that protecting your peace is worth being misunderstood, that walking away is better than being tolerated, that your standards are not too high, they're just too expensive for the wrong people. And that's when the internal shift becomes external. People start noticing the lack of access, the lack of performance, the lack of apologies for simply being who you are. And they call it ego, they call it coldness, they call it selfish, but they'll never call it weak again. You don't need to convince them otherwise. Let them speak, let them judge, let them speculate. Because while they're doing that, you're building. Quietly, consistently, like a storm gathering power where no one's looking. Because now your goal isn't to be liked, it's to be undeniable. To be so rooted in who you are that nothing sways you. Not flattery, not insults, not false promises, and especially not fear. That's when you become untouchable. Because you've stopped looking outward for permission and started looking inward for precision. You begin to speak less, observe more, move smarter. You stop explaining your process to people who've never built anything. You stop asking for feedback from those who only critique from the sidelines. You stop dimming your light for people still fumbling in the dark. And you realize most people are uncomfortable not because you changed, but because they didn't. And the deeper you go, the more peace you find in the quiet. Not loneliness, but solitude. Not isolation, but independence. You realize you don't need the crowd anymore. You just need direction. You don't need noise, you need momentum. And you don't need anyone to believe in you, because you already do. That's the moment the old version of you dies for good. The one who over-explained, who over-apologized, who waited, who hoped, who begged to be seen. That version gets buried under every moment you chose discipline over distraction, boundaries over comfort, purpose over approval. And in its place, something else rises. Not louder, not flashier, but clearer, sharper. A version of you that doesn't flinch at loss, doesn't panic when alone, doesn't tremble in the face of uncertainty. Because you've already faced the worst, your own self-doubt, and you didn't just survive it. You weaponized it, turned it into clarity, turned it into fuel, turned it into the exact thing that now makes you unbreakable. You either break or become ruthless. But once you've tasted what it feels like to choose yourself fully, not out of spite, but out of strength, you'll never go back. You'll never trade that silence for noise again. You'll never hand out explanations like gifts to people who never earned them. You'll never shrink so someone else can feel tall beside you. And most of all, you'll never let the world decide who you are. Because now you do. Every step, every standard, every move, on your terms.
All right. The next one is called Never Tolerate These 7 Behaviors from Anyone, not even family.
There are 7 behaviors you must never forgive. They don't come with screams, nor with knives or swords, but appear every day at work, in relationships, in conversations that seem harmless. A forgotten promise, a disrespectful glance, a silence at the very moment you needed protection. Small things like that. Yet Machiavelli called them the first cracks of power, because he understood. An empire doesn't collapse from one great battle, but from every time you say, let it go. You've felt that before, when a co-worker spoke to you with condescension, begin to believe they can do anything. Every time you stay silent, you don't avoid conflict, you only delay betrayal. And one day, you realize you're no longer respected, not because you became weaker, but because others have learned that you won't react. That's how power dies, not with a revolt, but with tolerance. Today, we'll expose the 7 behaviors Machiavelli warned about. 7 poisons that silently drain your respect, loyalty, and position. And the first one always appears when you're at your weakest, when the world is chaotic, when everything falls apart, when you need a helping hand. But instead, they disappear. They call it silence. But Machiavelli calls it betrayal in chaos. Betrayal doesn't begin with a knife. It begins with silence. An unanswered message, a promise never brought up again. Averted eyes quick, but you saw it. We like to believe loyalty is proven over time, but Machiavelli knew better. Loyalty isn't tested in peace, but in chaos. When the sun shines, everyone wants to be near you. When you win, they praise you. When money flows and your name spreads, every voice is sweet. Everyone is loyal until the storm arrives. And when it finally does, you look around and see familiar faces disappearing. No goodbyes, just cold emptiness where you once thought there was connection. That is the moment Machiavelli called the dagger of silence. It doesn't hurt right away, but with every heartbeat, you feel the slow bleeding of trust. You start to justify. You tell yourself, they're busy, They didn't mean it. They don't know I'm suffering. But deep down, you know who stays and who only stayed while the light was on you. Then, one day, when you rise again, they return with smiles, gentle voices, and apologies that sound all too familiar. I didn't know what to say. I was lost too. I wanted to help. I just didn't know how.
Hey,
You
that's the
stay
shit I
silent,
say
because this
when
time,
tragedy
you
happens.
don't need
I don't know how to
their
handle that
words.
type of stuff.
You
I will
already
walk away.
understand.
I
Their
go
silence
inward.
was the clearest answer. Machiavelli once wrote, "In times of crisis, silence is the most skillfully disguised act of betrayal." It isn't a mistake, it's a choice. They chose safety over loyalty. They chose to stand aside when you fell, so they wouldn't be stained by your failure. But when you rise again, they're the first to step forward to bask in the glory you fought to reclaim. At that moment, you can forgive. But don't confuse forgiveness with forgetting. Forgiveness gives you peace. Forgetting gives them another chance to stab you. Betrayal is a political wound, not an emotional one. When others see you abandoned and staying silent, they stop fearing you. And when fear fades, respect disappears with it. No one needs a knife to overthrow you. They only need to see that you can be abandoned and still stay quiet. From that moment, your power begins to bleed. That's why Machiavelli advised, judge a man not by what he says when you win, but by what he does when you fall. There are those who once raised their glasses to you, but when you lost everything, they vanished as if they never existed. And when you return, they speak of reasons, hardships, misunderstandings. But the truth is simpler. They didn't choose you. The cost of silence in chaos is not losing friends. It's losing authority, losing position, losing the line between the leader and the led. When you forgive those who left you in the storm, you're not being noble. You're sending a deadly message to everyone who's left. Betrayal has no consequence. From that moment, loyalty in your ranks becomes performance. People stay for benefit, not respect. They smile, but calculation hides behind their eyes. No one truly sees you as a figure to be feared or admired. You're just a throne, waiting for someone stronger to claim it. Machiavelli said, "A ruler loses power not because he was betrayed, but because he allowed the traitor to return." Betrayal doesn't make noise. It comes softly, like breath, but leaves an emptiness that can't be filled. It doesn't kill you instantly, but it makes everything around you begin to rot. So remember the faces of those who stayed silent when you suffered. Don't hate them. Don't try to make them understand. Just remember, because true loyalty doesn't need an oath. It shows itself in action when everything falls apart. And the one who left you when you were weak will never protect you when you're strong. If you've ever felt abandoned, know this. It wasn't a loss. It was purification. The world just showed you who deserves to walk beside you. When someone disappears in the storm, don't look for them in peace. Let them remain in the memory of the rain. That's where they chose to leave. Betrayal doesn't need revenge. The only revenge is rebuilding your power without them. So when you rise again, a single look is enough for them to understand. You're no longer who you were. You've changed. And this time, you will not tolerate again. No boundary is built from softness. No throne stands on kindness. Survival belongs to those who dare to look directly at the wound and say, "I have seen, I have understood, and I will not forget." Because in the game of power, the traitor is never as dangerous as the leader who doesn't know his boundaries. Once you lose the coldness to say, "Enough," you lose more than trust. You lose yourself. But betrayal is only the first dagger. For there is something even more dangerous than those who abandon you in the storm. It is when the one sitting on the throne begins to fear his own power. From that moment, the kingdom is no longer attacked from the outside. It collapses from within. And that is the second mistake Machiavelli warned of. Cowardice on the throne. No disease spreads faster than fear, and when fear begins on the throne, the entire kingdom rots. Machiavelli understood this. When a ruler trembles before his own power, everyone beneath him learns how to betray, not because they want to, but because they no longer believe anyone is truly steering the ship. Cowardice is never loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers through endless meetings, hides behind words like, "Let's wait a little longer," and wears the mask of caution. A weak leader never says, "No." He says, "Let's see." A weak man never acts. He only talks about plans. And while he waits for the perfect moment, his power fades with every second. You can see this kind of man everywhere. In companies, in governments, in families. The one who wants to please everyone. The one afraid to upset anyone. The one who chooses silence instead of confrontation. He thinks it's smart. But the truth is, he's spreading fear, not into his enemies, but into the very people who depend on his strength. In Machiavelli's eyes, a trembling king is an invitation to rebellion, because when the people see their ruler afraid, they stop believing he's strong enough to protect them, and once that belief is gone, no morality can save his rule. A true leader doesn't need certainty to decide. He walks through fog. He acts amid doubt, because he knows hesitation is the enemy of power. Think back to a time you saw someone hesitate. A boss who wouldn't take responsibility. A lover who couldn't tell the truth. A colleague who didn't stand by you, even when they knew you were right. How did you feel? Did you still respect them?
Nope.
No, because in that trembling moment, you saw the one thing this world despises most. Weakness. People forgive mistakes, but they never forgive fear. A leader can make a wrong move, but if he is decisive, people will still trust him. If he hesitates, even his future right decisions lose all meaning. Machiavelli once said, "In times of crisis, the man who dares not command is devoured by his own hesitation." Cowardice is the knife that splits the soul of power. It turns a ruler into a hostage of his own fear. Fear of failure, fear of being hated, fear of responsibility. And while he trembles, others learn how to take his place. The danger of cowardice is that it never calls itself cowardice. It dresses as reason. It says, "I need more data." It says, "I just want to make sure I don't make a mistake." But in truth, he's just delaying, because he's afraid to face the cost of real power. Power always demands a price: loneliness. Every order offends someone. Every decision causes loss. But if you want to keep the throne, you must endure that solitude. It's the line that separates the leader from the led. Machiavelli used to tell a story to his students. A king, during a rebellion, was asked by his advisor, "My lord, if the people rise up, should we negotiate or attack?" The king hesitated. He said, "Let's see how things unfold." 2 days later, the rebel leader took the palace. When captured, the king only said one thing: "I didn't die by the enemy's hand. I died by hesitation." He was talking with cover. That's the brutal truth. Power isn't for those who wait. While you hesitate, others act. While you seek safety, others seize the risk you avoided. And in Machiavelli's world, whoever acts first survives. But fear doesn't just destroy decisions. It destroys perception. Every time your hand trembles, every time your voice shakes, people don't see kindness. They see replaceability. Nothing kills respect faster than hesitation. A strong leader can be wrong, but he's wrong with authority. A weak leader can be right, but he's right in vain. This world isn't ruled by the correct. It's ruled by the courageous, because the one who dares to err still moves forward. The one who fears error stays frozen. Machiavelli wrote, "The firmness of a ruler is not cruelty. It is mercy to order. If the ruler lacks firmness, the kingdom will fall to another, someone willing to do what he's afraid to." You might think cowardice is self-preservation, but in the game of power, fear doesn't protect you, it strips you of everything. Look around. How many people do you know live this way, holding positions, but never speaking truth, keeping their reputation, but losing their soul? They smile at everyone and are despised by everyone. They think they're safe, but they're dying quietly inside. Because
This
power
is why
cannot
solitude is
exist
so
where fear
important.
reigns.
Imagine trying to
A true
dive
leader
like this
doesn't
and you
wait
got
for
somebody
permission.
with you who does
He
not
decides while
appreciate
others
it.
are
They
still
will make you
discussing.
feel like
He
you are
doesn't fear being
wasting
hated
your time.
because
But
he
truly,
knows
these
people may hate
things
him, but they will
are
obey
needed.
him.
This was
The
school
one who
should have been
fears
teaching.
being hated
School should have
will
been about
never
this.
be heard. No one respects cowardice. They only exploit it. They speak softly to it, but in their minds, they're already planning your replacement. And when everything collapses, the coward is always the one who says, "No one told me it had
I was
got
just
to
finna
this
say,
fast."
I didn't
Of course
know.
not, because no one respects a man who lives in fear. Machiavelli warned, when a ruler begins to fear being hated, he loses the ability to be respected. If you want to keep the throne, don't seek to please. Seek to command. Don't seek to be loved. Seek to be feared and trusted. Because in the real world, people don't follow the agreeable. They follow the one who makes them feel safe. And safety
my
only
goodness,
comes from the
this
man
one
who
is
knows no fear.
fire.
One day, you'll stand in the storm, and every eye will turn to you. No one will ask if you're afraid. They'll only want to know, will you command? If, in that moment, you tremble, the empire is already dead before the enemy strikes. Not because you lack skill, but because
This
you
one
lack
right
one thing,
here.
coldness. And that is why Machiavelli says,
Fire.
the strong are not those without fear. They are those who fear and act anyway. Cowardice is the second poison. It doesn't come from others, but from within the ruler himself. If it isn't cut out, everything you've built will collapse silently, like a curse. But there's another danger, a sweeter poison than fear itself. It doesn't make you tremble. It makes you smile, not because it loves you, but because it wants you to forget the truth. It is flattery disguised as loyalty.
I gotta get to work.
The sweet wine that kills every empire, because it
You can
blinds
finish
the
this
ruler
up if you
to
look
the
up Don't
hands
Tolerate
holding
These
knives
7
behind his
Behaviors.
back. The most
The author
dangerous
is
enemy
Dark
in a kingdom
Philosophy
is not
Mindset.
the one
So
who wields a
I gotta
sword
go.
against you. It's the one who
But I
stands
hope that the
beside you,
messages got to
smiling
you.
and saying,
I'll appreciate the
"I
likes.
am loyal to you."
That just let me know
Machiavelli
that
once
somebody
wrote,
is interested
"Nothing
in this
blinds a
information,
ruler
and I
faster than
appreciate that.
praise."
So
Flattery is the sweetest
y'all have a
poison
good
in
day,
existence. It
and
doesn't
I'll
hurt
see
you.
y'all tomorrow
It
morning.
soothes you. And that is how it kills you. Enemies keep you alert, but flatterers make you blind. Enemies force you to be strong, but flatterers make you weak softly, gently. Flattery begins like light rain. Compliments, nods of
I got 2
approval,
more minutes to 50.
words
So
like
I like to get a little
brilliant,
whole.
exceptional. No one does it better than you.
See.
At first, you
I'm
feel
about to leave
pleased.
it, but
Then you begin to crave it.
I'm gonna let it finish
And eventually,
so I can get these
you
last
become addicted.
12
When
minutes.
you start choosing comfort over truth, your power begins to bleed. No one dares tell you you're wrong. No one dares to warn you. You no longer hear truth, only your own ego echoed through someone else's voice. That is the most dangerous moment. Because you believe you are loved, when in reality, you are being lulled to sleep. Flatterers are not loyal to you. They are loyal to the power you hold. And when that power shifts, they shift with it. Like grass bending with the wind, they have no roots. Machiavelli advised that a wise ruler must always keep distance from praise, because praise is a double-edged sword. It can build an empire, but it can just as easily turn you into a puppet in your own kingdom. When someone always agrees with you, don't assume they understand you. Suspect that they fear you. or are using you. A truly loyal person will speak the truth, even if it makes you angry. A flatterer will say what you want to hear, even if it kills the empire. The problem is, they're good at it. Flattery doesn't come dressed as deceit. It comes dressed as support, as absolute loyalty, as brotherhood. You'll find them always close, always ready to agree, always saying, "You're right." But when you need truth, they vanish. Pay attention. When you ask for an opinion, and someone says, "You already have the answer," it sounds respectful, but it's how they avoid responsibility. Because if you fail, they remain innocent. Machiavelli warned, "Nothing is more dangerous than an advisor who only nods." A real advisor will make you uncomfortable. A real friend will risk making you angry. A flatterer only makes you pleased, because he needs you asleep. Flattery blinds leaders to reality. Everything seems fine, because everyone smiles, agrees, and tells you you're doing great. But when collapse comes, they're the first to disappear. You'll hear them whisper to others, "I saw it coming," but he never listened. They stab you in the back with the same words they once used to praise you. Flattery isn't just a lie. It's manipulation. And the terrifying part is, it works so well that you start to thank it. You start preferring the eloquent over the honest. You favor those who praise over those who correct. And slowly, you surround yourself with distorted mirrors, reflecting only what you want to see. Empires don't fall from too many enemies. They fall from too much applause. Machiavelli wrote, "No loyalty survives once truth is replaced by comfort." And the cruel reality is, most powerful men are addicted to that comfort. They want to be worshipped, forgetting that worship doesn't equal respect. They crave praise, forgetting that the praised are always the first to be overthrown. Because once you grow used to sweet words, you can no longer stand the truth. And when you can't stand truth, every flatterer becomes a king in your mind. You think you control them, but they control your emotions. You think they serve you, but they command you with yes. When you love their voice more than your own, you've already lost your throne, even while sitting on it. Look around you. Is there someone who always agrees with everything you say? Someone who praises you but never challenges you? If so, don't see it as loyalty. See it as a warning, because in Machiavelli's world, because they are the
Even
last
if you
honest
wrong,
mirrors
no, I
in
don't
a
need you to be
palace
like
of
that.
illusions.
If I'm
Without
wrong, I
them,
need you to tell
you'll
me
start
I'm wrong.
believing you're invincible until the enemy knocks at your gate, and you wonder why no one warned you. An empire dies for two reasons:
Stop.
a leader who fears, and a leader addicted to praise. The one who fears hatred never commands. The one who craves praise never listens. Both perish. One dies in isolation, the other dies to applause. Remember this. Flattery doesn't make you stronger. It only makes you feel
Weaker,
stronger
actually.
as you weaken. It's the wine that intoxicates rulers, and when they awaken, the throne is gone. The flatterer comes to you with a smile. The traitor comes with a knife. But Machiavelli said, "Fear the smile more than the knife, because a knife makes you bleed once. A smile blinds you forever. A compliment may be valuable, but a warning is worth more than gold. And if no one dares to warn you anymore, know that your empire's countdown has begun. When you hear only cheers, remember the same crowd that applauded Caesar was the one that shouted, 'Kill him!' Days later. Flattery is the third poison. It doesn't kill you in the dark. It kills you in the light of glory. And because it kills with sweetness, you'll smile as you're destroyed. But after the flatterers comes another kind of enemy, bolder, more dangerous, and utterly unafraid. They don't hide behind praise. They don't need knives. They strike you in broad daylight, before everyone. These are the ones who publicly defy power, and Machiavelli gave them a cold name, the public defiance. Power does not die by the sword. It dies by laughter, a single laugh at the wrong moment, and the crowd begins to realize the one they once feared
It's a joke.
can now be mocked. Machiavelli once said, "The throne is not built of steel, but of belief. And once a single crack appears in that belief, the whole empire collapses. People don't need rebellion to overthrow you. They just need doubt.